Hi everyone, welcome back to my lab. Today's video is going to be a review of the new Wayne Goss Anniversary Set Volume 2. I use the brushes exclusively to create the makeup that I'm wearing on my face. I will be inserting clips of me applying the products using the brushes, and I will go through individually one by one and let you know my thoughts. If you're new to my channel, I'm Yori. I do upload every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, so I hope you will consider subscribing if you enjoy this video and would like to check out some of my other videos. So now without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. I purchased my set from Beautylish, and they do come inside this pouch, as do all Wayne Goss sets of brushes. They do come inside a canister, and it's labeled Wayne Goss, the Anniversary Set Volume 2, handcrafted in Kumano, Japan, from the softest natural hair bristles, exclusively on Beautylish. So you just twist this to open it up, and then you do receive all your brushes. This card was also inside my package. As the card described, this set is limited edition. It is volume 2. The first volume is no longer available. I have already used the brushes to apply my makeup, so they are dirty, but I do want to go through the brushes one by one and also compare them to existing Wayne Goss brushes in my collection. Firstly, just as a general statement, to the best of my knowledge, these brushes are of goat hair, with the exception of this brush, which is the 08 brush, and this one is synthetic. Another thing worth mentioning at this time is that the other anniversary set did not have white-haired bristles. They were dark-haired bristles, and the brushes were not appropriate for use with creams as well as powders. These are appropriate for use with creams as well as powders, and I did try a variety of media with them so that I can give you an opinion based on how they were. The original version of this brush was white-haired in Anniversary Set Volume 1, so that one was obviously intended for creams or liquids. Going through the brushes one by one, this first one is the Goss 01 brush, and it's a dual fiber foundation brush. He did describe in his video that for dry skin types, you should actually stipple and sort of press product into your skin, so that's how I applied it. I used this brush to apply my Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Foundation, and I was very pleased with the application. I found that it gave me pretty full coverage, or at least as much coverage as I'm used to achieving with that foundation. However, I did also find that on first use, the brush was shedding quite a bit, and I do think that that's normal for natural hair brushes when you first use them. I fully expect, based on my experience with Goss brushes in the past, that that will stop after the first few uses. It is a very soft brush. I did like the finish of my foundation. I also found that it was very good to blend out cream contour. I did use this to blend out the Fenty Beauty Matchstick Contour Stick, and it did a very good job with that. So overall, I'm very pleased with this brush. The next brush in the collection is the 02, and this is sort of a powder brush. It is very tapered and domed, so it's much smaller than a traditional powder brush might be. For reference and comparison in size, here it is next to the Real Techniques blush brush. So it's much more tapered and also a lot more dense. I was actually pretty impressed with how much I like this brush. Like the 01 brush, this one was also shedding quite a bit upon first application. I used it for setting my under eye concealer. I used it for setting my cream contour with a powder contour. I also used it for blush application as well as highlight application all over face powder. He does mention that if you're working with small areas of the face, then you just use small pressure and you're using just the very tip since it is a little bit tapered. But then if you're working on larger areas of your face, you simply press the brush down and then it achieves a larger surface area. My preferred use for this brush, I did like it for under eye setting. I think it's a very good shape and size, at least for the way that I like to set my under eye concealer. I did also really like it for highlighting. I thought that it gave a very intense highlight and then it diffused it out beautifully as well. And I think that's probably the way that I'm going to continue to use this brush. It was also really good for setting down my contour because of the tapered nature, and then the fact that you can splay out the bristles a little bit to get a very nice blend so that it looks more natural. So actually this is one of my favorite brushes in the set, and it was a surprise to me because I was not expecting that to be the case. The next brush in the set is the 03 brush, and this is a blending brush, and he did mention that because of its size, you could also use it to blend out your concealer right underneath the eye, because you can get really, really close underneath your lash line. And so I tried it that way, especially since the brushes can be used for creams or powders. I wanted to test it out and see how it would work out. I think it's okay, although it doesn't really replace my preferred method of wanting to blend out my concealer, which is either with a specific concealer brush or a beauty sponge. But it does work, and it did blend out the concealer. Wiped it down a little bit, and I also used it for eyeshadow application, and that'll be the way that I'll be using it in the future. It's just a larger blending or crease brush, and it's very soft. I didn't experience any shedding at all with this one. Now I did want to mention I do own this brush in the squirrel hair, so this is the 03. Here they are up close. You can tell in the anniversary set the writing is in pink letters, and in the regular one the letters are more like grayish white. Other than that, the size is completely identical. Now I do have to mention that because since I will be using this mainly for an eyeshadow brush and my eyeshadows are powder, I prefer this one with the squirrel hair because it is a lot softer, and I find that it releases product a lot better. So I can use this brush multiple times without having to wash it so often. I can merely go into a color switch, wipe it off, and it's ready to be used again. This one, quite possibly because of the shingle pattern on the hair or the color of the hair itself, even if I go into a color switch, the effect is not exactly the same, and I find that the bristles splay out a little bit more than they do with the squirrel hair brush. So I have to say that my preference is for the dark haired brush, especially given that I won't likely be using this kind of brush for cream products. So I do prefer my original one, but I will definitely find use for this one as well. The 04 brush is just little brother to this one. It's the same shapes and just a little bit more narrow. So one of the things that he described in his video is that these brushes are really good for people with hooded eyes because they are smaller blending brushes, and I find that to be the case for sure. The brushes are very soft, but again, comparing them to my blue squirrel hair brushes, these are just simply not as soft. I did use this brush in my eyeshadow application as well, and I think that it achieved a very nice blend also. Next is the 05 brush, and this is a lovely brush for someone with hooded eyes or small eyes because it's a very tiny pencil brush. Here I'm showing you a MAC 219, which is sort of your traditional pencil brush, and then the Goss 05. So you can see the 05 is a lot smaller. The Goss brush is also a lot softer. This brush I found to be really, really good for defining the lower lash line as well as going in for very, very detailed crease work. He also mentioned that because this can be used for creams, you can use it with gel liner to apply sort of a base or a very smoky eyeliner look. And so I think that this will be a very handy brush. I love very small detailed brushes, and so I think this one will be a staple in my collection, and I'm really happy with that one. Next is the 06 brush, and I like this brush because it is tapered but still a little bit fluffy, so you can use it for laying down color as well as blending depending on how you hold it. You have probably seen me use the 06 brush on my channel previous times. I find again the dark haired brush is a lot softer than this one, even though this one is soft. In comparing it to this one, I don't like this one as much. I prefer this one a lot more, again, because the application of eyeshadow that I'm used to doing is with powder products, and so it doesn't bother me that I shouldn't use this one with creams, if that makes any sense. And again, just like the other mention, I can just color switch this brush and it's ready to go again, whereas this one, I even spot cleaned it and you can see that it is still a little bit dirty from just using it today. Other than that, looking at the shapes of the two brushes, you see that there's really no difference. The only difference is in the coloring of the logo on the brush itself and the hair. So again, I have to say I will prefer my original Goss brush number 6. The next brush in the collection is the Goss 07 brush, and this is actually the one I was most excited because it is very much like a flat shader brush. Think like a MAC 239 brush, for example. It's a little bit less dense than a MAC 239 and the hairs are a little bit longer. I definitely wanted to put this guy to the test as far far as how well it would be able to pack on products. So I used it today to apply one of the Natasha Denona Chroma Crystal top coats. So if you're not familiar with the texture of those shadows, it's more of a cream consistency. It feels like wet when you press your finger in there, and that's actually the preferred method of application, is just with your fingertips. But I did find that this brush was able to pick up the product and lay it down really nicely, so I'm not disappointed in this one at all. It's so funny because this is really the brush that motivated me to buy the whole set, because I know that Wayne Goss has mentioned that he doesn't typically use brushes like this, and so this is probably the only time we're gonna see it, and so I don't want to take a chance, and it didn't disappoint. This is a wonderful brush. The very last one is the 08, and this is a flat definer brush. It's a little bit different than the other flat definer brushes I have in my collection. As I mentioned, this one is synthetic, and one of the things that I liked about it is that the bristles are a lot longer than a traditional brush. I did find that it was also pinched a little bit tighter, like the hairs would narrow down to a very fine point. However, after spot cleaning it, that fine point is now gone. So it's now sort of the traditional thickness of a regular flat definer brush. It's not as narrow as it was before, which I'm a little bit disappointed in because I really like that narrow to get really, really close to the lash line. I think it's still going to do a fine job, and I did use it to line my upper lash line today. I also think that this brush, he mentioned it could be used as a lip brush, although I haven't used it in that method yet, as well as for carving out your eyebrows if that's a technique that you prefer to use. So overall, my thoughts, this brush set is $241. It is a handcrafted set, and a lot of craftsmanship goes into creating these brushes, so I understand the price point. I think it's a beautiful collection. However, if you prefer the application of powder products and you know that you do not need the versatility of your brush set to handle creams, then there is still a set on Beautylish that is available that includes more of the dark-haired brushes, and that one is called the Collection. If I recall correctly, and I will leave both sets linked in the description box down below, if I recall correctly, it includes one brush like this that is for foundation and obviously good for creams, and then all of the others are going to be the dark-haired bristles, which would then be for powders. And so if you're looking for the very softest brush that you can find, then I would probably recommend that set more for you rather than this one. Also, that set is $210 as opposed to the $241 that we paid for this one, so that's just something to keep in mind as well. The brushes are not exactly identical. For example, the shader brush, this number 7, won't be in that set, but there is something different to take its place. And then also the number 8 brush is also not in that set. I believe that in that set you have something a lot smaller, which to you it may be a positive thing. So definitely take a look at both sets before you decide which one might be a better option for you. Given my experience using the set so far, I would have to say that my favorite brushes are definitely the 02, which was a huge surprise for me, a really huge surprise. I like the 04 because it is a smaller blender, and I have very small eyes and hooded eyes, and so I tend to prefer smaller blending brushes. And I really love this one, which is the 07. I don't know if these brushes are going to be ever available individually, but if they are, then these 3 would be my recommendations. If you're watching this video and for some reason he has made them available individually, then I recommend the 02, the 04, and the 07. And then other than that, as far as the other brushes, they're all really nice. This small pencil brush is particularly handy, so I'm glad to have that in my collection. But aside from that, I would really recommend you look into the dark-haired brushes because they are just so soft. I feel you're not gonna have to clean them as often, and they're just the softest brushes I own. I'm totally addicted to these, and I was somewhat expecting these white ones to feel the same, but they really don't. When comparing brushes of the identical type, it's just the dark-haired ones are just definitely softer. So it may be something that was obvious to you, but it wasn't really obvious to me when I purchased the set. And so when I get them home, I start comparing. That's just something that I noticed, so I wanted to share it in case you're in the same boat as me and you didn't know. Now, that's not to say that I'm disappointed in the set at all. I just expected this degree of softness, and that wasn't the case for all the brushes. In general, I think it's a very nice set and I'm definitely going to enjoy having it in my collection. I look forward to trying them out some more and coming up with new ways of using them, especially since they are so versatile in the terms of being able to use them with creams and powders. So that sums up my thoughts on this set. Please let me know if you picked it up and how has your experience been with them so far, what you think of them. And yeah, if you have any favorite brushes, then definitely share those with me. I love makeup brushes so much. If you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Join my makeup family if you haven't already, as I would love to see you again in a future video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you're having a lovely weekend so far, and I will see you again very, very soon on my next one. Bye-bye.